Thank you, Mark, for that kind introduction. It is truly humbling to be here to commemorate and honor the great John Zerlo. You know, I'm going to turn this back to you, Mark. If that is not being respectful of John Zerlo, he's deeply respectful. I'm going to turn it back to you.
Sounds like one of my concerts. That's Republican woman, Congresswoman Elise Stefanik of New York, booed off the stage during an event in her home district on Monday. The Congresswoman was met with a wave of loud cheers and boos during an event to honor a local politician who died last year. She finally just gave up talking. She later blamed radical far left Democratic ad. I like that. Yeah, they get them in like Wyoming. It's so radical, you know, exactly. So, you know, this reminds me so much of 2009 during the Obamacare hearings. And you would have senators, members of Congress going out, and they would just, it was really, really tough. And it just shows you how quickly things changed in politics. In 2008, Barack Obama and the Democrats went a historic landslide. The next year, you have even people like our own Claire McCaskill, who's very popular in her state, but Democrats all over the country just getting hammered in town hall meetings, getting booed at town hall meetings. And then, of course, 1 year later, you have the Tea Party winning big. Boy, we're seeing a lot of that where Republicans, and this is always, and I'm serious, this is just a terrible sign for a party. Republicans are scared to go out in public now, and that's one reason why.
We call that the Plattsburgh cheer right there. It's a cousin to the Bronx cheer here in New York.
Yeah.
I mean, Elise Stefanik, that's in her home district. Sure, there may have been some Democrats there yelling at her, but every time this happens at a town hall meeting, Republicans say it's Democrats, they've infiltrated us, they're bust them in from the outside. If you watch these town halls over this last several weeks, that's just not the case. It's constituents in these red districts many times yelling at their representatives because of their votes on the so-called big beautiful bill and taking things away from them. And this plain to see fact that in that bill, billionaires get tax breaks and people like the ones who are upset at their representatives are losing something, whether that's Medicare or whether it's their hospital in their district, or you can go on down the list of things that are being taken away from them in favor of rich people in this country. It's just a fact of the substance of the bill. So some agitators, some Democrats there, probably, but also a lot of Republicans in these districts are mad at the people who represent them.
Well, they really are mad for a lot of different reasons, but you know, the bill is doing so terribly in the polls, and for good reason. It gave tax cuts to billionaires. It gave tax cuts to multinational corporations. It gave tax cuts to monopolists, you know, like Mark Zuckerberg, massive tax cuts. Well, what is that, New York 19, I think? She's in upstate New York, a big district, a lot of rural voters there. And those are, I'm hearing from CEOs, rural hospitals, healthcare hospitals, they are really suffering. And this bill is really hurting healthcare. It's New York's 21st. Thank you, Alex. They're really suffering. So, you know, it may not be quite the same as an urban or a suburban center, but you go out into a place like New York 21, and you'll have people that say, my Medicaid is being taken away for my children's health care, for my parents' nursing home care, and for what reason? So Mark Zuckerberg could get the biggest tax cut ever. So Elon Musk could get the biggest tax cut ever. You know, so Amazon could get the biggest tax cut ever.
A few things with that. There's, and I know that during August, the Democrats are trying to define that the big beautiful bill as such, and it's not just that rural hospitals may close. It's and if that happens, and making the connection to people who aren't reliant on Medicaid, that means your healthcare costs are going to go up because people will show up in emergency rooms to get care. People this is bad for everyone, and I think it's that which hurts people, their actual health care plus their pocketbooks, and then just sort of a gut level sickness about what's happening elsewhere in the country, right? There's like this gut level. We've seen this in the town halls of a Republican member of Congress did in Wisconsin a couple weeks ago, right? That was about immigration, and it wasn't even about the fact of deportations. It was the manner in which they were being done. So, and Elise Stefanik can say that these are Democrats showing up. The point is, Democrats are showing up. Democrats figured it. That either shows organic anger and or Democratic organization. Either way,
it's bad news. I would just say I probably held 200, 300 town hall meetings. Nothing would have ever happened like that over all my time in Congress, and it wouldn't have happened that way because I would have had a lot more people out supporting me. And if they ever heard I went somewhere where I got booed, there would be 10 times as many people, cheering them. But what a lot of people are saying, what's there to be excited about? Unless you're Mark Zuckerberg, unless you own a tech monopoly in Silicon Valley, unless you run a multinational corporation, what's there to be excited about? Unless you're, Jeff Bezos and you get, biggest tax cut of your life, or Mark Zuckerberg and you get the biggest tax. What's there to be excited about in this bill? And even on rural hospitals, and you're exactly right. So you take away health care from people who are on Medicaid, right?
Yeah.
It's not just like, oh, hey, we showed them.
Right.
I'm not exactly sure what you're showing them, but what happens is they go to emergency rooms.
Yeah.
The hospitals have to treat them by law. That hospital incurs more costs. Those costs are passed on to people not on Medicaid. And so the cost of healthcare, which is already skyrocketing, continues to skyrocket. They have a couple of other problems here, Jonathan Lemire. The biggest problem is Donald Trump's not going to be on the ballot next year. Republicans don't do well when Donald Trump's not on the ballot. They just don't do well. They didn't do well in 2017, 2018, 2019. They even lost in 2020. They didn't do well in 21, 22, or 23. He got on the ballot in 24, and they did okay. He's not on the ballot now, and you look at the generic ballot test. I mean, Democrats have their lowest approval ratings ever. Let me say that again. Democrats have their lowest approval ratings ever. They worked hard to get those low approval ratings, and yet they're still beating the Republicans by 5 points. If you're a Republican congressman, you got to be like John Lovitz in the 1988 Saturday Night Live skit. I can't believe I'm losing to this guy, but they are. It's terrible news. Not for Donald Trump. He's not running. It's terrible news for those Republican members of Congress.
Yeah, and that's seen in Plattsburgh, also probably not a hopeful sign for Congresswoman Stefanik's possible gubernatorial campaign in New York. Yeah. She's looking to run for that seat as well. You're right. A few things here. Unlike earlier in the year, when the NRCC was telling Republicans, hey, don't even hold town halls. This time in August recess, like, look, if you want to, go ahead, defend the bill. The White House, however, signaled to them, keep it limited. Like, don't be out too much. This is not a town hall, of course, it's an event, but they were aware of this brewing backlash to the bill on the Medicaid stuff in particular, the tax cuts for the wealthy, and the like. And as the Democrats, yes, are having still struggling to come up with a positive message. Right now, it's still much more just we stand in opposition to this. But Republicans are out there finding tough sledding. The polls are what the polls are. They are in a tough way right now. And that's also, it's that concern. Donald Trump not on the ballot, but Donald Trump deeply worried about what's going to happen in next year's midterms, which is why suddenly, Joe, we're in this redistricting push, because there is such a fear that they're going to lose the House and what that could mean for Trump, not just stalling his agenda, but opening up investigations again, potentially even impeachment again. Some Democrats are talking about that were they to regain the majority. So therefore, you're seeing this push in Texas because they're aware it's going to be really hard to defend their signature pieces of legislation and keep the majority.
And Willie, you can see the Democrats are trying to find their footing, and it's quite embarrassing, actually. I mean, Gavin Newsom, I mean, have you seen what he's doing online? And it's like, just take a deep breath. Yeah. Don't try to turn the ship 180 degrees and they don't know what to do. I have a good idea. Instead of trying to school Donald Trump, talk into the camera about affordability. Talk about making groceries more affordable. Talk about what you're going to do for housing. Talk about what you're going to do for energy prices that continue to go up. We heard the congressman yesterday talk about energy prices skyrocketing in New Jersey. Don't try. As I've been saying, Donald Trump's not on the ballot in 26. He's not on the ballot in 28. Why try to drag Muhammad Ali in the ring when you got Chuck Wepner standing right in front of you? And Wepner's a bleeder. He's a bleeder. You want him. So why are you going, I'm going after Donald? No, you're not. You're not running against Donald Trump. Go after Tweedledee or Tweedledum. Chuck Wepner, a bleeder. Go after him. I respect Chuck Wepner.
Yeah, all due respect, of course.
He kind of held in there longer with
Rocky, many people say.
I think he did. Yeah.
I mean, this is the attention economy that Governor Newsom understands. You got to get attention somehow, so he's on social media doing parodies of Donald Trump and he's trying his best to kind of grab some attention. I think he's looking beyond 2026, obviously. Who's writing about all this is Jim Vandehei, about Republicans trying to find their footing. Let's bring in the Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist, MSNBC political analyst Eugene Robinson, and the co-founder and CEO of Axios, Jim Vandehei. So, Jim, we kind of walked right into your column. Let's read from it. It's titled The Rising Democratic MAGA Movement. You write, Democrats needing, quote, their own version of a populist, anti-establishment, MAGA-like makeover. So what does that look like, Jim?
Yeah, it looks like what you were just talking about with Gavin Newsom, right? Trying to adopt a lot of the techniques that you saw from Trump, that you've seen from MAGA. Get on social media, be a warrior, curse a lot, try to have a lot of edge, insert yourself into the news cycle. I think the bigger part, though, is what you've seen happening in New York, what you've seen happen in Minneapolis, the popularity of Bernie Sanders, the number of people turning out for AOC events. That right now the momentum in the party is very much for the very progressive wing of the Democratic Party, which is not that much of a shock, but I think is probably problematic in the off-year elections for Democrats. It's just not where the vast majority of the country seems to be. I think it's one of the reasons that the Democratic brand overall is low. And so I think that's an important thing to watch. And in terms of your conversation about the backlash to the bill, to me, this is going to be a really, really important conversation 3 months from now. In 3 months, we're going to know what's happening with redistricting. If Republicans can really rewire the map in a way where they could pick up anywhere from 5 to 10 seats, that is meaningful. That is deeply, deeply meaningful. It's harder in these Democratic states to do it. It's easier in Texas and Republican states to do it. The other is, watch the next month. If inflation does what I think inflation is going to do, it is going to be deeply, deeply problematic for the Republican Party. If you look at what's happening with the stock prices of Chipotle or Sweet Green or any of these restaurants where people take their money when they have a little bit extra and go and spend it, they're all tanking. If you look at what you're hearing from Home Depot, your Walmarts and others, they're basically saying, listen, we've absorbed as much of a loss as we can from the tariffs. Come August, we have to start passing that on to consumers. If that happens in home goods, if that happens in groceries, if that happens in autos, which I think could be the next piece to fall, that is going to make all of this talk about the bill that much more problematic, because you're going to say, wait a second, what Joe was saying was right. They legitimately did get a massive tax cut, especially if you're super wealthy or you're running a big company. And a lot of people who were on Medicaid were requiring these government programs. Yes, there's some fraud, but yes, there's a lot of people who are authentically not going to get benefits tomorrow that are getting them today. That's when this becomes much, much more than a sideshow at one specific event. It becomes a deep, deep systematic problem for the Republican Party.
Well, and Gene, the problem is a lot more than just Jay Powell. You look at Well, you look at two things. You look at the jobless claims, which caused somebody to be fired, and then you look at how hot inflation ran last month. I think it was 0.9. They're expecting 0.2 or 0.3. That's really even before you start figuring out if the tariffs are in fact going to be passed on. A lot of these stores are going to, give up the ghost and start passing on those tariffs. That's a lot of things happening at the same time. I do want to circle back, though, and just ask a question. Why is it that only progressives can hammer home the fact that Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos should not get massive tax cuts, the biggest tax? I don't understand it. Why are moderate Democrats, they should lead with that. I'll tell you why, because I'm a conservative. I'm a small c conservative. I am a deficit hawk. I've been a deficit hawk my entire life. And I can tell you, small c conservatives, people that like budgets balanced, people that actually don't want government to pass the largest spending bills ever, have just seen this Republican Congress led by the so-called Freedom Caucus pass the largest spending bill ever, with the biggest tax cuts for billionaires, multinational corporations, and people who run monopolies in Silicon Valley. That is a conservative issue to exploit. That is a centrist issue to exploit. That is a liberal issue. That is a progressive issue. I don't understand why moderate Democrats can't lead with that as well.
Well, it's a good question. I mean, this is not a hanging curveball, right? This is T-ball. It's just sitting there on the tee, ready to be knocked out of the park. And so you're right that the Democrats who are connecting and who are breaking through tend to be the progressive wing. Now, message always has a lot to do with messenger, and some of the progressives who have broken through are charismatic, talented politicians. Whether or not you believe their views are mainstream, they're good at politics, and they're getting the message through. I guess the second thing I would say is that one thing I believe I have learned in the Donald Trump era is that the labels that we use, progressive, moderate, conservative, paleo-conservative, MAGA, whatever, those labels are fungible. Those labels don't necessarily apply anymore. So there is a lot that progressives are saying that may really connect with a lot of voters whom you would not think of as progressive. Now, there are things that progressives say that probably don't connect with those voters, but I think we're either we need some different labels or we need to just de-emphasize the labels and kind of look at what the message is, how it's connecting, and how other Democrats could make those same connections.
Jim, you write in your piece about style and how Democrats are, some of them anyway, trying to adopt almost a Trumpian style of performance in politics. Your bottom line is, though, Trump's suit fits Trump uniquely. Others who try to don it wind up looking like clowns. I'm thinking back to the 2016 election when Marco Rubio tried that on for a while. Remember that? He tried the tough talk and embarrassed himself there. Gavin Newsom's trying it, but the thing with Governor Newsom, for example, is he can go and fight. You see him in interviews with Hannity. He goes to places that a lot of Democrats don't go and can have those conversations and those debates. So what is that sort of middle ground between not being so performative, but also showing the kind of fight that Democratic voters are desperate to see right now?
Listen, Newsom's a unique political athlete, whether you like him or not. He's very, very good at it. If you listen to him on conservative podcasts, liberal podcasts, he can do what most Democrats, most politicians can't do. He can sort of go toe-to-toe. He can be edgy. He can do all those things. I'm not sure that's what the American people are looking for, right? If you fast forward to 2028, my guess is there's going to be an exhaustion with this style of politics, this style of drama, this style of name-calling. So just assuming that Trump's tactics will work for you seems like a false assumption. Going back to the point that Eugene was making, about this idea of how easy it would be to attack the fact that rich are getting richer. this isn't actually a political argument. It is an empirical argument. There's no doubt that the rich are getting a lot richer, that the poor are not getting that much richer, if getting richer at all, that tax bill undoubtedly favors the most wealthy. Then you look at your stock market and you say, what's happening? Well, most of the growth in portfolios is coming from your biggest tech companies, the top 7, the FANG companies. Well, who are those? That's your Zuckerbergs of the world, right? That's these big companies that are already doing well, that are getting massive assistance from the federal government. And the only people who can really invest in a lot of these companies are people who themselves are already rich, right? If you look at people who have money in 401ks or in the stock market, tend to start with a lot of money to begin with. So the rich are going to keep getting richer. This is a fantastic environment if you have money. There's no doubt about it. And I think that always sits on top of politics, right? People are always feeling like, is the system rigged? Is the system fair? And if somebody's paying a lot more for a car, a lot more for oranges, a lot more for eggs, a lot more for stuff at the next trip to Home Depot, yes, bitterness rises. And it's why, interesting, Eugene talks about there are no labels. If you really get the Steve Bannons of the world on truth serum, they agree a lot with what Bernie Sanders is saying about the dangers of AI, about the rich getting richer, about some of the dangers in that bill going after Medicaid. They're not loud about it right now, but make no mistake, when Trump is gone, there's a bigger disconnect there than people realize, because the Bannons of the world, I would say, are tied more tightly to the working class, because they understand that's why Trump exists today. It might not be Trump's worldview per se, but it certainly is theirs.
Well, I mean, Steve Bannon will tell you just that. He's a fan of Lisa Kahn's. He believes, like me, that monopolies should be broken up. I mean, he believes, like me, that billionaires should not be getting tax cuts right now, while working class Americans are struggling more and more every day. And, you know, the thing is, too, I mean, it is empirical. I mean, we're not talking about opinions here. We're talking about facts. The richest billionaires on the planet are getting a lot richer because of this bill. And working Americans are falling further and further behind. It's not even a close call. Also, again, America's national debt will go up $20 trillion over the next decade. $20 trillion. The total national debt for the first 220 years of this republic's existence, $4 trillion. So over 220 years, the United States government accumulated $4 trillion of debt. This Congress, with a bill they just passed, will allow the federal debt to go up 5 times that much in the next decade. Why did they do it? Because they wanted to give billionaires, they wanted to give multinational corporations, they wanted to give the richest of the rich, they wanted to give monopolists tax cuts. Huh? I just say, if you're a Democrat and you're running next year and you can't win in a swing district, go into something else. Like take up watercolor painting or something like that. Really, one thing I really want to underline that Jim said, Donald Trump can do Donald Trump, right? Gavin Newsom can. Like, it's just like Bill Clinton could do Bill Clinton. Hillary Clinton couldn't. It's just like Ronald Reagan could do Ronald Reagan. George H.W. Bush couldn't. Donald Trump's skills are non-transferable. And I think Republicans are starting to find that out on the campaign trail. That's why they lose every year. Donald Trump's name's not at the top of the ballot.
And as Jim said, someone like Gavin Newsom can do well what he does, which is go sit with Sean Hannity or go sit with Joe Rogan and defend his ideas. But you don't need the performance part of it that, again, only Donald Trump can pull off. To Joe's point, Jen, you're running a Democratic campaign like right now, let's just say theoretically, right? You're getting ready. Democrats have been licking their wounds for the last 8 or 9 months after last November, regrouping a little bit. What is the message for Democrats heading into 2026 and beyond here?
I mean, I do think it's about affordability. You know, if you look at the Democrats that are the most popular in the country, it's the Midwest Democratic governors, right? And why are they popular? They're popular because they're getting things done. They're popular because they are, even though Tony Evers isn't the flashiest guy ever in Wisconsin, he talks to people a lot. They're good communicators within their own states. Gretchen Whitmer, Josh Shapiro, Tony Evers. And they are getting stuff done, and they talk to people about the issues that affect their everyday lives, right? So I understand what Jim is saying about the rising Democratic MAGA movement, and that may be a tension in 2028. There'll probably be some 2028ers that are in that lane, but it's not, I don't think that's where voters are. I don't think that's the majority of Democrats are either. I think that they are more in a moderate lane, but they're more about this, like, an affordability message and getting things done, making things, I can't afford my health care, and yet they're giving this away to the wealthiest people in the world and actively making it harder and worse for me. It's never been this clear.
Again, using their own words after the election, they told me they were going to bring the price of butter down.
Yeah.
Instead, they gave hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in tax cuts to Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, and Elon Musk.
Yeah.
I would say also, really, Republicans love to talk about socialism, right? Oh, look at the tie he's wearing. He's a socialist. Look at the way he walks. He's a socialist. Look at his dog. He's a Marxist, right? Anything. They're so stupid, right? Whatever it is. He's wearing his ball cap sideways. He's a Leninist. The greatest example of socialism that we have before us is what the federal government has done for Silicon Valley over the past 20 years. And that was the big kicker. The richest guy on the planet, who's taking the bare essentials away from the poorest of God's children on the planet, he became the richest person on the planet by government welfare, by getting money from the federal government. They all get so much money. These billionaires are like, we're libertarians. Yeah, they're libertarians until they ask for the next billion from the federal government. It's so bogus. So you've got Republicans that are they're preaching capitalism to poor single moms. And they're practicing socialism with the largest multinational corporations on the planet. It's just absolute nonsense. And this is empirical. As Jim said, this isn't opinion. This is empirical. We could get the numbers if people would like. If somebody's video, we get the numbers of how much the federal government has given Elon Musk and all these other billionaires through the years. But they get all of the biggest recipients of government corporate welfare. And now on the other side of it, they're libertarians who say, give us tax cuts. I mean, again, if you can't beat those guys, holy shit.